this is a really important point, actually. I want to, if there's one thing people take away, because there's a massive confusion in youth transitioning between relative age effect and biological age. There's this, so relative age effect is your distribution of your birth date in relation to the cutoff date for the selection of your sport. So, for example, let's say the selection for the Scotland under-17 national team is January to December. So if you're born in January, February, or March, you'd be considered a quartile 1. If you were born in April, May, June, quartile 2, July, August, September, 3, so on. So what you see in pretty much most contact sports, football, rugby, etc., is an over-selection of, compared to a normal distribution, we'd expect that 25% of your players would come from 1, 25 from 2, 25 from 3, 25 from 4. What you typically see is this massive curve of mostly 1s, a little bit less 2s, a little bit less 3s, barely any 4s. And people have fallen into the trap. And when I say people, I'm not talking about layman's terms. I'm talking about some people who are very vocal in this area and think they understand biobanding have been very critical of it because they're like, oh, you're just pandering to the early maturer. And, they, without mentioning this person's name, they think that biobanding is a solution to relative age effect. And they've misunderstood the problem. It's two separate phenomenons. So, for example, I could be a quartile 1 player. So I could be born, in fact, I've had this, a scrum half who was born on the 1st of January. So he is the earliest of quartile 1 players, but he was a late maturer, right? So development isn't linear. So just because you were born in quartile 1 doesn't mean you're biologically advanced to quartile 2, blah, blah, blah. Where you were born in the calendar year does not affect your biological maturation compared to your peers. So you could be a quartile 4 who's an early maturer. You could be a quartile 1 who's a late maturer. So the two are separate constructs. So relative age effect is basically where you're born in relation to the distribution of the selection year, whereas biobanding or physical maturation is your maturation state individually. So are you biologically advanced for your age, on time for your age, late for your age? There's some really great research coming out now, and it's kind of suggesting that those, because there's that underrepresentation of quartile 4 players, there's something special about them for them to hang in there. So actually, you probably find those quartile 4 players are early maturers because they have to be to just hang in there. So there's a lot of really interesting bits there. Like you see relative age effect take effect before maturation kicks in. So if you went and sampled that under 9s team at, I don't know, Tottenham Hotspur or whatever, you will see relative age effect. Now those kids haven't probably hit maturation yet. So there's a separate construct here. So people confuse the two. So relative age effect is one construct. Biobanding or physical maturation is a separate construct, and people need to view them independently and understand them independently. So that's a big skill set for coaches to wrap their head around, and that's something we, certainly at Scottish Rugby, we're working on. Because you speak to coaches and they go, oh yeah, I know all about relative age effect. I'm like, separate thing. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, just because he's a quartile 1 doesn't mean he's an early maturer. And just because he's quartile 4 doesn't mean he's a late maturer. Like we need to do more robust measurements to do that. So as you mentioned, from a skill set perspective, this is then going a level deeper. And, it's actually not that difficult. There's a lot of shared resources out there. Jay Salter's put out a really good Excel spreadsheet where if you can get, an athlete's date of birth and their height and weight, and you can get biological mum and dad's height, you can figure out their predicted adult height and their percentage of adult height. And that percentage will show you where they fall in relation to their peers. And you'd be surprised at how big that gap can be. Like I'm speaking to Mandy Johnson, who was at Man United for 10 years. They saw gaps of up to 4 years biologically. So someone could be playing for the under-12s. Me and you are both playing for the under-12s, but you're actually biologically, 14, 15, I'm biologically 10, and we're on the same team. Who's going to win that 50-50 tackle? It's not me.
Who's going to get selected?
Yeah, who's more likely to get injured?
Uh-huh.
In that 50-50 collision. So yeah, there's a lot of things around there, and it's actually not that difficult. And that's a big thing we're pushing at the moment, is getting that deeper understanding of going, okay, you've selected this kid, and you've told me he's really talented. But when we look at his physical maturation scores, he's at 95% of adult height, which tells me he's basically fully developed. This one you're saying is not talented is 85% of adult height. He's got loads more growing to do, loads more developing to do. So how does that influence our selection decision now? Because this guy's almost a finished article. This guy's not even close. Does that change your perception of him as a player? Now do you think, well, actually, the fact that he's even managed to hang in this long shows there's something about him. Whereas this guy's leading the pack, and he's his skill set's maybe average. So for me, I think it's really people really getting confused around, you're not comparing, it's not a level playing field at that age group. And you need deeper level of data or deeper level of understanding to properly assess talent, if it exists, in relation to physical ability. Because maturation is one of the biggest things that will make you run faster, jump higher, and hit harder. So if you choose based on those elements and you say, this guy's a standout performer, look at his stats on the pitch, he's involved in every second carry, he's involved in every second tackle, blah, blah, blah. You're really just choosing based on maturation, which makes you a pretty terrible talent ID scout. I could do that. All we need to do is line him up and go, he's the biggest and fastest, let's pick him. We wouldn't even have to watch him play rugby.